Welcome to the Rocky Garza Show, where we explore the collision of a deeply meaningful life and a wildly impactful career. I'm your host, Rocky Garza, and with over a decade of experience as a coach, consultant, and keynote speaker to many Fortune 500 companies, I'm here to share personal stories and expert advice to help you gain clarity, build confidence, and discover that you too can build the life you actually want. Whether you're a high achiever looking for a more full life or a leader striving for professional success with purpose, this podcast was designed with you in mind. Welcome to the Rocky Garza Show. Today we're diving into something that sits at the core of how I lead and how I coach. The difference between leading with your values and coaching with someone else's. See, I have found that if we blur that line, we start building teams of people that look and act like us, when what we really want is to create a team of people who look like themselves. And so if you feel like this already in that line alone, you're thinking, yeah, yikes, I think that's me. I am hosting a leadership training on this exact thing this month, and I would love for you to be there. You can get the details of that over at rockygarza.com/confidence, and you can check that out there. And again, I would love to have you with that. See, when it comes to leadership, your core values serve as your internal compass. They're not fluff words on a poster. They're not just a fancy plaque we have in the hallway. Your core values really are the driver of your decisions, your communication, your conflict, and I believe often your clarity. I think when we know what matters most to us and we know how to lead with conviction, we can do that even when it's difficult. We can do it when it's easy. We can do it when it feels a little unknown or unsure, because leadership, by definition, from my perspective, is stepping out first in a direction that you believe is worth going, and then inviting others to come with you. Leadership is not about being the boss. Leadership is not about telling someone what to do. I think those are components of management. But leadership is your willingness to take a step out in a direction first with deep conviction and then inviting other people to come in that direction with you. But the direction you choose, I believe, that's often guided by the things that we value most. You've probably heard me say this 1,000 times. You can't borrow clarity. You've got to find it for yourself. And your values are how you start. I want you to think about it like this. You're the one taking the first steps forward. You're the one who's sort of made the determination about where it is that you want to go. And maybe you're even the one setting the vision for your department, your team, or maybe at a larger scale, if you're listening, maybe you're the one setting the direction for your entire organization and where it's going to go over the next 90 days or even 3 years. So when we think about leadership, we know that it's going to be driven, right, from something that I believe that comes from our own set of personal values. Now, those of us that work in an organization that potentially has a clear set of values for the business, that's always going to guide the direction of the work. That's always going to drive the direction of the organization and making sure that we are in alignment with where we say that we're going with our mission, vision, values, and so on. However, our direct leadership and the other individuals that we have on our team and our direct leadership in the way that we lead others based on our values. For example, my number one value is vulnerability. That doesn't mean that I'm the best at it. It doesn't mean that I crush it all the time, that I'm never not vulnerable. That would be silly. It does, however, mean that I ultimately believe that we are best if the direction that we are going first, to me, is driven by vulnerability. And to me, that encompasses a layer of honesty. It encompasses a layer of directness and encompasses the ability to speak plainly and clearly and really almost hold space for this idea of realism, right? Rather than optimism and trying to make something better than it is, or pessimism and looking for the worst. To me, I think vulnerability is this space to live in reality of what actually is, and then to be able to communicate and talk about our facts and our feelings simultaneously, letting both of those things be interwoven. When it comes to how I lead from the stage, when it comes to how I lead my family, when it comes to my ability to support others around me, that is a number one driver for me, right? And therefore, the people who are in my life who value that and see that and want to go where I am going are still in my life, and The people who no longer see that because it's not something they want or is important to them, they are no longer in my life. That's not good or bad or right or wrong. It's just simply true. And so often the direction that I want to go may not be the direction that they want. And that means that I am no longer in a leadership role there because the people who I potentially invited at some point no longer have a desire to go. And so I want us to think through leadership through that lens. I think we have to be okay with understanding that in our lives as human beings, that's going to occur. And for me, over the course of the last 5 to 7 years, my values have obviously changed, right? And by change, I mean that I've sort of consistently grown more clear, more specific. And so I want you to think about your values, the words that you choose, choosing words like integrity or choosing things like authenticity or even loving. I think all those are wonderful values. I want to be clear. But what I find is that the definition of those values is much more important than just the singular word we choose, because the way in which you define them is really, really vital to how you lead. It's vital to how you show up, because if I'm on your team, I want to know what that word means to you. And you throw out something like authenticity and you throw out something like integrity. I have a general Webster's definition for that, but I don't have a clear understanding of what that word actually means to you. And it makes it difficult for me to accept the invitation of followership, to accept the invitation to follow your leadership and to go to the place that you want, unless I can hear and understand from a definition standpoint why it is something that is so convictional to you. That then becomes the reason that I want to follow you. So leaders, I want to encourage you to make sure that you're clear on your values. Make sure that you're clear on what those values mean to you, and make sure that you're consistently communicating that to those closest to you. I often find it's always a great opportunity for me to ask myself this question: when is the last time that in my leadership felt it was maybe a little bit off because I was leading from a place that was no longer in alignment with what I valued most? I would strongly encourage you to ask yourself that question. No one can answer that for you, but I would ask you to strongly consider, when is the last time that your leadership felt off? Was that because you were leading from a place that you were not in alignment with what you valued most? You were potentially trying to align yourself with what you thought others needed from you most. So as we think about leadership, you lead from your values. But now let's talk about coaching. Because see, I think that we coach with theirs. And here's where I find most leaders get stuck. We get so locked into our values, be it clarity, ownership, excellence, connection, whatever they are, that we start coaching people like they should have the same ones as us. And I don't think that we necessarily do it intentionally. I don't think that we're walking around hoping to replicate ourselves over and over and over again. I don't know that for a lot of us, that's our conscious thought. I think it's a condition of human nature, if you will. However, I often find that it leads to this unnecessary tension inside of teams when team members feel like that there's not really room for them to be themselves because they view us as leaders as though we think the only way that you could ever be successful is to be like me. Now, I don't believe that most of us think that. However, I find that most of us are coaching like that. You see, the goal of coaching isn't to get people to become you. It's to help them become more themselves. I say this all the time. My goal is never to tell you what a great leader looks like. I think that would be impossible. However, my job is to help you discover what you look like as a great leader. And I believe in your position that you're in as you're listening to this, if you are leading even a single person in your life, relationship, children, at work, that the mantra we should all have is that my job is not to tell you what a great leader looks like, but to help you see what you look like as a great leader. And if I know one of my team members values stability, but I personally value much more risk, and I've been coaching them to be more risk, I'm not developing them. As a matter of fact, I would even maybe venture that I'm confusing them because I'm consistently setting them up to fail because I'm wanting them to think like me rather than appreciating them for thinking like them. I'm creating tension that's rooted in me, not anchored in them. So I want us to think about that for a second. I want you to think about the people that you lead. Think about your personal relationships. I want you to think about your children or the way that you communicate or so on. And where do you see yourself communicating things that you value in hopes that they will become that rather than trying to extract that from them? I personally love efficiency. I hate wasting time. I hate details. I hate getting muddied down with a bunch of stuff and you want me to sit through a meeting or tell me a million things that don't actually matter. Just be clear. Tell me what it is. Let's move on. And I want to make sure I'm not saying details are bad because I couldn't survive without people in my life who love them. I simply don't like them, right? Now, how often do I find myself in my home saying things to my kids like, guys, let's go, hurry up. Hey, go brush your teeth. Hey, you're wasting time. And the reality is that they're not wasting time. I just feel like they're wasting my time. And I'm just trying to tell them to be more like me. I often find myself trying to better utilize this practice. I often find my family is a great way for me to test what actually works out there in the corporate world, because if it works at home, I guarantee you it works there. For my daughter, getting a few extra bracelets and putting them in a small little purse and a bunch of other little trinkets that she can take with her wherever she goes is really important to her. As a matter of fact, like, it's invaluable to my daughter. She loves it. She wants to always have it with her. And I often can't even remember to take my wallet someplace. But she's always got her little accoutrements with her, if you will. Well, maybe there's actually something that I can learn from her. And maybe my coaching her actually now supports me. I think at this point, you probably understand what I'm saying, right? My son loves details. He wants to know the time we're leaving and when we're going and exactly when it's going to be and when it's going to. I don't. So I can often say it doesn't matter. We'll be there soon in just a little while. Hey, Dad, can we throw the baseball? Yeah, in a little bit. When's a little bit? Just in a little bit. I don't know. I'm not Dad. When are we? He just wants to know. He just wants to know when we're going to throw the baseball because he's setting clear expectations for himself. As a leader, I think it's my job to communicate to him and help coach him to be himself. And that might require my need to get into the details just a little bit more. You follow me? I believe every leader should know the core values of their team, because when you coach through their values, you give feedback that lands. You connect growth to what they actually care about. You help them see success in a way that's their win, not just yours. And that creates trust. It creates momentum. It creates buy-in. So I want you to ask yourself these questions. Do you know what your team values? Do you know what the one or two or three, or let's get wild, the top 5 values the people are that you communicate with most regularly? How would your coaching shift if you focused on what they cared about, not just what you thought you would do if you were in their shoes? So my challenge to you this week is that try it out. Ask them what they value. You want to get even crazier and you want to take your team through an exercise? You can go to rockygarza.com/team values, and there's a free resource for you and your team. Send that link to all of your team, and you can take them through a core values exercise. Have them listen to this podcast and help them understand where you are going and how you want to help develop them. If that's something that you like, if that's something you are interested in, something to you at all that is valuable, I would encourage you to go there and check that out. And if you want to dive in deeper, you want to see what it's like and how do I really take this and apply this to my life and to my work, I want to encourage you, go to rockygarza.com/confidence. That's rockygarza.com/confidence, and join me this month for my leadership training, where we're going to dive into this specifically and really look at how do we discover the things that are robbing us from becoming the leaders that we really want. I so appreciate you being with me. And as a reminder, lead like you, not like them.